Right Side, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, the KIDO Talk Radio app. Again, he leads the power index. If we were lefties, he'd be our AOC. David Bozell joining us from foramerica.org. Good morning, sir.
The leader of the squad.
That's right. The squad.
I'll take it.
The anti-Spice Girls, as we call them.
Me and AOC. Though AOC only has like 10 donors from her district, so I've got more than that. So I'm winning in that department.
Hey, you watch Netflix at all?
I do. My kids have sort of usurped it from me, but I do.
Have you seen that documentary about AOC and the women running for Congress?
Just a few snippets of it. No, I haven't seen, but just only a few minutes of it.
You know, I've seen.
I tried to watch it. I fell asleep.
Well, you have more going on than I do because I watched about half of it, but it was interesting. They really lucked out with her, and of course, editing after the election. What did they do? They made sure that she was featured prominently in it. But what a lot of people don't understand is, AOC says, I did it without any money and all that. She had money for flyers. She had money for this. She had money for that. It was an organized effort across the country. And I don't know whether you want to call it lightning in a bottle or not. I mean, she beat a person who had, was what, number 3, number 2 in the House when it comes to leadership.
Third in leadership. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, that Democrat primary was, I think there was like 19,000 votes taken. Either it was 19,000 votes taken or she only needed 19,000 votes. Very, very, very low participation rate in the primary. And then, once, whoever was going to win the primary was going to win the general in that particular district. So look, her popularity is really, it's a credit to her dominance of social media. A lot of people like to suggest that the media, the news media, kind of created her. There was no way they were going to go against a member of the Democrat leadership establishment. And frankly, if you just look at the record, there was not a lot of talk about her up until the very end when some polls started to tighten. There was not talk about AOC in the regular press circles. And to her credit, when she says she kind of did this on her own, to some degree I would agree with her in that she did social media on her own. And she just has a very good approach to it. I mean, we can kind of quibble about what she says and debate her up and down about some of her policy, so-called policy prescriptions, which are way out of left field. But she's very good at using these tools. I mean, now because she's made a name for herself, she's got up to like 5 million Twitter followers. Her Instagram operation, Kevin, is just as strong. I mean, people wonder, well, why is socialism selling with our young people? Well, our young people are on these new platforms like Instagram, and they've got some of their political heroes on the platforms as well, selling socialism to the tunes of millions of followers. There's nobody on the right that's got that kind of big stick to swing on some of these new platforms. It's certainly a challenge for conservatism. So in that respect, I'd give her some credit. But the reality was it did not take a lot of votes for her to win that primary.
Right, but she had money behind her. Again, David, you as someone who covers the politics, knows the politics, what is it called? Knock Down the House on Netflix. Like, I was watching it. She had paid staffers. It's not like, okay, Kevin Miller is going to run and he and his buddy David are going to go in the back of a red pickup and drive the state of Idaho with, money and flyers that they've gotten from the company Xerox machine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's got her fundraising has been called into question ever since she got here. It's been mired in controversy ever since. I mean, her chief of staff just had to quit because he can't seem to provide the adequate, correct documentation as to where she got all this money from. So yeah, no doubt she was supported, for put that in air quotes, with some dollars and cents, and depending on which news source you're looking at, there's a lot of speculation out there that there's some dark money that violated all manner of campaign finance regulations that she should never have accepted or used. So the sad thing is that the regulatory bodies charged with kind of reviewing those sort of things are run by Democrats now. But in the House, if you're going to investigate this out of the House, and there's very little chance that they'll go after her because she's become so powerful. There was this window, Kevin, that sort of between February and April, and then it's sort of continued on into early parts of the summer with Pelosi and AOC kind of fighting tooth and nail. There's an establishment swamp within the Democrat Party as well, and they can't stand her. They don't want to have anything to do with her. They feel as if she and her and the squad are going to ruin their chances for retaining control of the House or expanding their control in the House. And so just like there's a Republican establishment that just considers, conservatives to be kind of like the great unwashed, there's a Democratic establishment that wants nothing to do with its left flank. But now she's become too big to fail. Because her endorsement will probably be the most sought after endorsement in the 2020 election as we move forward here. I mean, that's going to be one of those stories to look out for in the Democrat ranks.
Indeed, and we'll get to that. David Bozell joining us, foramerica.org. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. It's just fascinating when you take a look at AOC and all that she's about and the squad thing. To me, that sounds like a faction out of pro wrestling as opposed to a group of Congress people.
Yeah, they don't seem to be much in the way of. They're not in the solution providing business, are they?
Right.
They seem to be just in the perpetuating of problems business. And their legislative efforts have gone nowhere. The Green New Deal was just sloppily written. Everyone remembers their desires to eradicate farting cows off the face of the earth. I mean, this is just sloppily written legislation where they just got way ahead of their skis, and they're so hell bent in destroying American commerce, the American economy, American prosperity, that they'll throw anything in these bills to get maximum attention from their fringe left base. So, but they've just not, outside of amassing, I'll give them credit. I got to give them credit. Outside of amassing prolific social media operations that tend to go viral whenever they say anything, in terms of just legislative affairs, they've done nothing, and they've basically, I think, hampered the Democrats' ability to even be competitive against the president coming this fall.
Here's the question. Do they get primaried?
Primaried from their sort of center left? It would be foolish for me to say no, because somebody will. One of them will get primaried. Probably Omar. If I had to bet, on one of them, because she's been the biggest lightning rod for controversy, and she herself is enveloped in her own scandal with folks reporting that she abused all sorts of immigration laws vis-a-vis her brother. So she's got all manner of skeletons in her closet to dig out. So there's an opportunity for a primary challenge there. I don't think there would be one with Tlaib in Michigan, and AOC. I mean, there's a guy running in the Republican ticket. They're going to give it their best shot in AOC's New York district. But it's one of those things you got to try to run against them now. They're all freshmen, and statistically, if you win re-election, after if you become a sophomore woman or congressperson, it is smooth sailing for the rest of your career. You're basically a 90% chance to win every election you participate in. If your name's not, so long as your name's not Eric Cantor, you'll be you're guaranteed a seat for life. So the first re-election campaign is the most critical. So it would be wise for Republicans to step up to the plate and try to win one from the opposite side. And I suspect perhaps Republicans will do so. Therefore, the opposite the reaction from Democrats would be, okay, let's not primary and waste and spend a bunch of money on a costly primary process. Let's take on the Republican challenger.
David, let's just keep it with Omar. She's a lightning rod. You've got speculation about her personal life, speculation about fundraising, her comments about Black Hawk Down, the forces in Mogadishu. What do you make of that district that elected her?
Well, I've challenged on Twitter that very notion a lot. It's a head scratcher. How did Minnesota 19, I think is their district, deliver her? And the response that I've gotten on social media, I've done some of my own research, is that there seems to have been just a tremendous Somali influx of population in that district. Whether it's coordinated, I don't know. I don't know that there's evidence to suggest that it was coordinated. I would doubt severely that a bunch of Somali immigrants said, "Let's go to a district in Minnesota so we can elect one of our own to Congress." I don't think that necessarily occurred. But for whatever reason, a number of Somalis immigrated there, and she popped out of that political system. So that's from my research, that's what I've been able to gather.
More coming up with our great friend David Boesel. You can check him out. Great social media stuff, humor, commentary, and, of course, relevant, relatable content at foramerica.org. And don't forget our app, KIDO Talk Radio, available on the App Store and Google Play. We would appreciate you giving us a look, maybe downloading it to your phone. You can take us anywhere. And, as always, Girls with Guns. We are seeking our final contestants, getting ready to win that big prize from Independence Indoor Shooting. Voting starting soon. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. David Boesel with us once again. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. All right, David, once or twice a year we get in-depth here. We go extended for the hour. So your thoughts right now on the House races. How important is the House? Some Democrats feel that they might have a shot at the Senate. What are you hearing? What are you seeing from D.C.?
House races. The Republican retirements do not help. Lots of them coming out of Texas. That's a product of there's a couple different reasons for that. One is age. Some of these guys are getting up there. Two is that Republicans do not, so when Republicans have term limits with regards to committee chairmanships. So you can't stick around at the top of the committee for very long. So once you've reached the top of the committee, lots of them tend not to want to go take a step down. It's just the way the Republicans have written the rules for themselves. It's how you get new fresh blood into the pipeline. I'm a big believer in it. The downside is that you do get retirements because people don't want to stick around. The biggest reason, though, that people don't want to stick around is that leadership has consolidated all the power, especially with regards to spending bills. So the House really does not do much in a split government. There's not much for them to really do. They're not in the presidential personnel business. They're not in the Supreme Court nomination business, judge business. That's all on the Senate side. The House really's main chief responsibility is to be good stewards of taxpayer resources. But when the leadership decides collectively between both parties, we're just going to do one big spending bill to rule them all, and they only basically vote on that one big spending bill for that year. The only thing that really gets them any sort of attention are some of the investigatory stuff, the Mueller hearing or the Peter Strzok hearing or some of this other stuff, impeachment, type related things. So there's not a lot of action in the House. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of Republican retirements, because they're just tired of just sort of, punching in and punching out. So it's going to make it challenging for Republicans to retake control. But it starts with what I mentioned earlier before the break, going back into those 30 plus odd districts that you just lost to a bunch of freshmen and going right back at them. Those are your purple districts. There's still, so you can still make up some ground perhaps in southern suburban California, southern Virginia, upstate New York. There's opportunities across the map that you're just going to have to be very strategic and run good candidates against some of these freshmen and tie the freshmen to the squad as best you can. And I think they may have some success, but I think the numbers will shrink in terms of a Democrat majority in 2020, but I don't think it'll be a runaway for Republicans by any stretch, just despite the Democrats' problems at the top of their own ticket. And on the Senate side, not a very good map for Republicans. Republicans are on defense in a good majority of the country, but I don't see a lot of good Democrat candidates out there either. So I think Republicans should retain their 54-seat majority, maybe lose a couple, and maybe that'll tighten up as well.
One that we should be looking out for, though, would be Alabama. Doug Jones really just renting time unless Roy Moore continues to be a spoiler.
Yeah, that's who can beat Roy Moore, out on the Republican side, because I don't think that Roy Moore has a chance to win in Alabama. I think, look, he gave it everything he had. I don't know much more, and everything in the book, the kids think was thrown at him, and that's going to happen again. And it's very difficult to knock off incumbents. So the challenge with Alabama is I couldn't even tell you who Roy Moore's challenger is, and that's a problem. We're almost a year away here, and these races, especially on the Senate side, need to be nationalized. And so whoever's going to be running against Roy Moore needs to get his or her name ID up, because it's right now I think it's in the single digits. I can't even remember the person who's going to do it. So those are the types of challenges that candidates have when when the president takes up so much of the news oxygen. These races are going to sneak up on a lot of people, and we're not going to know the candidates perhaps as well as perhaps we should. And that's just a byproduct of the media environment that we live in now. But the left is definitely energized. The out of party base is always more energized. That's just sort of a golden rule of politics. I'm sure they'll make some gains just based on that. But I just tend to think that the president's going to win in a walk, and Congress will tighten, and we'll move on to the next 4 years of President Trump.
And moving on, traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. Thank you, Larry. We continue on. David Bozell joining us, foramerica.org. We've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. Is Texas lost? Should we be concerned about Texas? You should always be concerned about the political maps. Absolutely. Because if you're not, it just breeds complacency, and that's how things like Colorado. Colorado went from red to blue overnight because everyone said, "Oh, don't worry about Colorado," and now it's a bastion of liberalism. And so yeah, absolutely. The Republican Party apparatus needs to take Texas seriously. Look at the
the Beto versus Ted Cruz race. Beto had about 45% in the bank before he even announced he was running against Ted Cruz. And he ends up with about 47, right? With all that attention and all that money, he basically got himself 2 points. As I'm comparing him to the last guy who ran against Ted Cruz, the last Democrat who ran against Ted Cruz. So, there's always, it's not as red, it's not as ruby red as people like, maybe perhaps on some of our side like to think that it is. Especially as cities in Texas just continue their urban sprawl. But I think the principles are there that are time tested and approved of. Our principles are time tested and approved of in Texas, perhaps more than any other place. But absolutely, the right needs to be concerned about keeping it a conservative stronghold, especially where the Electoral College is concerned.
Sure. More coming up with David Bozell next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Joining us now, once again, David Bozell of foramerica.org. This is, again, one of my favorite parts. We break down the wacky, zany, lunatic fringe known as the leftovers, the folks running for the presidency on the Democratic side. Does anybody impress you?
Impress? No. Just to be blunt about it, no. There's not from a policy perspective. There's some entertainment value that's kind of impressive. I mean, the Marianne Williamson poet lady, who she's supposed to be, she's entertaining, I suppose, in a laugh out loud kind of way. But no, just from a policy perspective, Kevin, these guys are just they're tripping all over themselves, trying to out left wing one another. I think what has been impressive has been basically all of their candidates not named Biden. All of them have taken some pretty big shots at President Obama, whether it's healthcare or some of his dealings in foreign policy. He has not been spared, and it's been left to Joe Biden to kind of defend his former boss. That surprised me. If someone had told me a couple of years ago that you're going to spend the 2020 primary race watching Democrats slug at Obama, there's no chance I would have bought into that. But a lot of these guys have gone after him for not being left wing enough, if you can believe it, as left wing as he was, and that's just they've just bought it. Twitter is an extraordinarily left wing place, and Twitter is the starter fuel for the news cycle, and it's where all these politicians live, and it's where a lot of their communications teams live. And they've just bought into this left-wing echo chamber of noise of we must do everything we can to get Trump, get him out of there, and provide all manner of benefits to anyone who wants to cross the country, no matter where they come from or no matter what the situation is. Just left-wing liberal policy preference, one after the other. And they just bought into this. Yes, Twitter is the starter fuel for the news cycle, but it's not reflective of Americana, of where the country is. And I just think that's why people are watching these primary debates and just sort of cringing, like, wow, this is the best they've got to offer. Even if you were not a Trump person, you got to be looking at this like, this is not what I signed up for. There's just not a lot of talent, and not a lot of policy prescriptions or proposals that are putting the country first. They're putting the country ahead of others, putting our well-being ahead of others. And so it's been a little bit of a clown show. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? It's been tough for me to watch.
Well, I'm a conspiracy guy, David, as you know. So
Cool.
You take a look at Joe Biden, as flawed as he is, stumbling, bumbling Joe. Could we have squishy, squeamy Republicans deciding we're going to go with Biden because we don't like the president? We want to get our party back.
I don't buy into this Biden is so well beloved in the Midwest theory, Kevin. I just don't. If that were the case, then he would have done a lot better in his umpteen times that he's tried to run for president before. And I mean, he's never done well in Iowa, ever, in his past presidential runs. And that's where, supposedly, according to current political wisdom, that's where his base of support is. And he's never done well there at all. And so I just think it's sort of this the left and some of the Democrat base are just so desperate to beat the president that they're kind of keeping Biden at bay. Like, okay, if we'll take you if we need you. And I think perhaps some have decided that out of this group, they might very well need him. I just don't see his base of support as advertised, as supposedly advertised. I don't think that there's a case to be made there. Are there some quote, so-called never Trumpers that could vote for Biden? I think they would vote for anybody, honestly. I mean, some of these guys are talking about the lieutenant governor or the lieutenant governor, jeez, the woman in Georgia who said that she won the governorship, but she didn't. And there's a lot of never Trumpers who are just desperate for her to get into the race. I mean, she's as left wing, nutcase as they come. And there's a reason why she didn't win. And it just so I think some never Trumpers would just vote against Trump no matter what. But this is Obama kind of turned politics upside down. So for decades, you and I would watch these primaries kind of cycle through, and then each general election candidate, each general election nominee would go for the middle. And Obama just said, you know what? I know conservatives outnumber me 2-1, but I'm going to get my left-wing base so fired up and so energized that I'm going to beat you at the polls. And he did it twice, as we nominated milquetoast, candidates and John McCain and Mitt Romney. Did it twice. Trump did the same thing. Trump says, I'm going to get my base so fired up, I'm going to out-hustle you and outwork you. And I think that's his advantage going into this thing, that the left doesn't have that candidate. And Trump there's nobody better than he is at energizing his base. So the never Trumpers, I think, are not going to play as a big of a role as they like to think that they are.
David Bozell joining us once again, foramerica.org. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Yeah, it's fascinating, though, when you take a look at the Democratic field. Kamala Harris just seems angry.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I think she had a fairly terrible stretch in that second debate of hers, especially as she got taken to the woodshed by Tulsi Gabbard. But yeah, I think she just comes off as she wants to be that candidate, though. Her case is, I'm going to quote, I'm going to prosecute Donald Trump on the national debate stage. So she has to keep up. This is sort of the bet that she's made, Kamala has made. She has to keep up this, a pen in hand, point finger, kind of angry vibe to just sort of fit that caricature that she's bragging about. I just don't think that that's appealing in a general election setting. But I think you're right. She has come off as not appealing. Let's say that.
Well, and everybody wants to bring back the Obama coalition. Back to what you said, I was amazed, and David Bozell, maybe you and I and maybe two other people were watching these debates, how Obama all of a sudden seemed conservative compared to the loony left.
I know. And it would. I tried to imagine him on the stage with that crowd, and I thought like Dennis Kucinich didn't have the get up and go, and those, remember when he was running against those guys,
right?
But I think Obama would have just mopped the floor. Obama had the president. He had a top-notch team. His political team was the best since probably Clinton. Clinton 92. Obama's political team was that good. It was cold from Hollywood. I mean, they knew how to brand.
Well, plus they have the Zuckerman's former Facebook founder as well.
Right, exactly. They knew the tools. They knew these emerging social media tools. Now they're just part of our daily routine. But then in 2008, Facebook was half the size that it is now. So they knew the tools coming out of Silicon Valley that they could use, and they knew how to brand. They knew how to persuade and sell. Clinton, the early Clinton machine, had that same skill set. Nobody on this side, on this time around, for the Democrats, has that. At least it hasn't presented itself. And frankly, the Obama operation, they spent half their time bad-mouthing Biden during this whole thing. If you look at some of their media operations, when they do their own debate recaps, these are all former Obama guys who are just trying to make a name for themselves in the press now, and they're all bad-mouthing Biden.
Right.
They never really liked him to begin with, and they just felt like they had to take him. But B, he's just not doing very well. He's not acquitting himself very well. His only good line was when he went back after Gillibrand, after she started attacking him. And that's all these debates really allowed themselves for, because of the format where it's 20 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. It's all about how can you get out of the zinger, and that's it. And so he's not very good at that. He butchered his own website the last time around. He couldn't even get that one right. So I think there's not a lot of respect coming out of the Obama operation, which were talented campaigners. And some of those guys have just gone into the for-profit sector of politics, and they're not going to be involved in this to go around. And so I think there's a little bit of a talent divide, a talent gap between who the president is surrounding himself with. And of course, obviously the president is good at this stuff. And then versus whoever the Democrat nominee will be.
All right. We've got about a minute left. I'm going to try and hold you to this. What do you make of the name calling of the president by Beto and others, calling him a white supremacist? We've got about a minute left in this segment.
Well, it certainly crosses the Rubicon. There's really no going back from it. Beto's, again, one of these candidates that's just trying to survive at this point. And the only advice that they're getting is try to just go after Trump in a personal way. Try to trend on Twitter as best that you can. And they've just decided that personal invective is going to be the way they do that. I think a lot of the country has seen these personal attacks for what they are, all political, and I would hope that most of the country is disgusted by all the name calling, especially after some of the recent events with the shootings and everything else. We're good people. We know it. We're a generous country, the most generous in the world. Let's stick our chest out and act like it and be adults.
More with David Bozell next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Waking up on the right side, David Bozell, Kevin Miller. You can check him out, foramerica.org. Again, David, one thing that I love about your site, your tweets and the like, is you hold folks accountable, particularly the press. And, you and your family have a long history of holding the press accountable. But, it's funny. It was Donnie Deutsch or Chuck Todd or one of them slipped up and said, well, we're going to do this and we need to do it so we can win. And it probably was Donnie Deutsch. Chuck Todd wouldn't be so overt, but just the whole press and how they're clamoring for impeachment. They're clamoring to label the president as a white supremacist. You've got, what's her name, A.M. Joy going on and on, having people in saying we need to destroy white people. We were just talking figuratively, not literally.
Right.
This does not help bring us together.
We had Joe Scarborough, former Republican, or I think he probably likes to consider himself a current Republican, though I don't know how, saying that anyone who supports the president in any way is aiding and abetting in racism, Nazism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, wow, that is really, I mean, I think I probably donated money to his campaign before, like long ago, when he was Republican, running in a swing district in Florida. Like, holy smokes, was I wrong? I mean, I'm digging what the president's doing, especially on the policy front. I'm digging how he takes on the press, how he's taking on culture. He's doing everything he can, despite a slow Congress, to get national security priorities vis-a-vis immigration, to honor those commitments that he made. Not doing anything that he didn't promise that he would do to the campaign. So of course I'll support all that. But the press is so determined to get rid of him that you're going to see these slip ups, and now they've just decided, what the heck with it? Who cares if everyone knows that I don't like him anyways. So I might as well just incorporate it into my quote unquote news reporting. So it's the nice thing is though, Kevin, these shows are not being watched. I mean, CNN it's not just a distant third in the ratings, but I mean, just a couple 100,000 people a night, out of a nation of 140 million. I mean, that's nothing. It's nothing. So I mean, yeah, they get a lot of attention in political circles, but they just nobody's paying attention to this crowd. I mean, a good example was Chris Fredo Cuomo, who had this town hall after El Paso, and I mean, nobody watched it. It was a distant third in the ratings. And that thing was so hyped coming off of a major news event, and nobody watched it because everyone knew what they were going to get. And so it's a testament to the American viewing community. Like, you know what? I know exactly what the presentation of CNN and MSNBC is going to be, and I'm going to reject it. And people are turning to alternative sources.
Well, let's examine Fredo for a moment, because last week he made some big news where some guy said, "Hey, man, what's up, Fredo?" And he just lost. Now, Chris Cuomo is not a young man, whether we like him or not. Pretty good journalist back when he was with ABC. Now he's playing the role that he's trying to be the Bill O'Reilly or the Sean Hannity of CNN. But, yeah. I mean, look, David Moselle, you've been in public. We've been maligned. We've been threatened on social media with people calling us a lot worse. Conservatives have been thrown out of restaurants. Look, Sean. I know Sean. Sean Hannity comes to his defense, showing, of course, Cuomo would never do the same. But you think about it, man, dude, you're a 49-year-old man. You work for Time Warner. You're the face of Time Warner. You got to be bigger than that.
Look, Fredo is not an insult, okay? The thing that bothered me about what the kid did was throwing on the camera, because that kind of told me that he was looking for attention.
Well, they do that. You're right, but the left does that all the time to conservatives and Republicans.
Left does that all the time. Yeah. Exactly. Cuomo gets into this deep New York accent.
Yeah.
Right. Like, wants to be like very Tony Soprano all of a sudden.
Right.
I mean, he's got a little bit of that on camera, but boy, oh boy, it came out in that clip. I mean, that was New York Giant, New York Yankee, New York coming out. And that was kind of weird to see, just looking at it on camera. Obviously, that was kind of a visceral reaction from him. But yeah, he's got to walk away from that. He's got to. He just simply has to. I've been, since I'm in close proximity to DC. John King from CNN. For whatever odd reason, I've flown on many planes with him, and I've seen him take some verbal abuse. And he just keeps his head down, and it ends. Now, should he? No, he shouldn't. He's just trying to get from point A to point B in his work, and some guys take it out of line. I've seen people come to John's defense in public, and him not have to do it, and just in a kind of an adult way, like leave the guy alone. He's just trying to catch a fight with his kids. But it doesn't get on camera. It doesn't go viral because he handles it in the right way.
No, you're right. You're right.
If you're gonna be in the public eye and you want that kind of notoriety, the downside is that people are going to take verbal pot shots at you. And you have to decide whether or not you're going to take it.
Right.
We've seen this stuff come. Hollywood celebrities get all bent out of shape too when they get kind of yelled at in an uncontrolled environment, and they lose their cool. So, but yeah, he needs to turn the other cheek a little bit here, because Fredo is not that bad. I mean, he laughed at himself, calling himself Fredo.
And let me just get this in: traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. No, you're right about that, David Bozell. We're just about out of time. Anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I just want to encourage people that this movie, The Hunt, that was about liberal elites gunning down Trump supporters, so-called deplorables. Universal Pictures is going to pull the movie, or has announced that they're going to pull the movie. It's a terrific win for of our culture. Yes, was the movie a satire? I mean, that's what they built it as after the fact. Not for me to judge. Could the deplorables have won in the end? Perhaps. But coming out of El Paso, the movie's promotion was about a bunch of liberals gunning down conservatives in cold blood. A number of conservatives, including Donald Trump Jr., For America, a number of others said, hey, pull this film. It's not the time or the place. We're not trying to censor anybody. Just do the right thing and pull it. Universal Pictures did pull it. But here's the bigger picture. Never has a left-wing operation, or institution rather, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's the news media, whether it's a book, whether it's a television show, how many times have we as conservatives complained about liberals airing something awful about us, and it just gets on the air. It continues its boulder roll down the mountain. And here was a thing where it was totally social media driven, where conservatives won that debate and Hollywood stood down. That's an important sort of benchmark for us on the right. We need to capitalize on that momentum. And so I would encourage everybody to get on these platforms. The only thing that's stopping right of center conservatism from winning on these platforms is that just quantitatively, we're just outnumbered.
We are.
But I know that's the only thing. So just get on board and get engaged. The president needs you.
We need you, David Bozell. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.